Hi everyone, I'm Dora and I'm here today with Alex. We're going to talk about Lobizona today. Thank you for joining us for another video book review for Latinx and Kidlets. In this series of books, we'll be centering banned books again. The banning and challenging of books in the US has a long history, and unfortunately, the recent rise of this happening in K-12 classrooms across the country is not new. Many of the books that have been banned or challenged recently center BIPOC and or queer experiences, which again, the silencing of marginalized voices in the US is not a new strategy. With these videos, we hope to bring more awareness to these books and create dialogue.
All right. So I'm Alex, and also we both write for Latinx's and Kidlit. And so we wanted to start off with what is the difference between a banned book and a challenge book. So there are two differences between that. So a banned book is basically the removal of a book from the bookshelves, and for challenge means is basically the attempt to remove the material, but they haven't like officially done it yet. So yeah, so what stood out to you about this book? I guess I'll ask you.
Yeah, so we both read Lobizona by Romina Garber, which is, you probably can't see it because of my background.
Oh, I have it. I have the book.
In here for the save, look at that. Yeah. And it's about Manu, right? And really just Manu's both really and figuratively, like her transformation, right? Of who she is. And what I loved about it most especially is that this is a fantasy, but with very real topics. So ICE comes and her mother is detained. And so then she heads off to a different place to find out more about herself, but also like how to kind of piece back her family together, right? Right. I love that I mean, in my world, it's like a shapeshifter, right? Because I'm very much into fantasy, so like a shapeshifter, and just how Romina described Manu was probably what the most. Like that character was just very well outlined, and I just loved how she just literally and figuratively like transformed.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. No, I agree. There are so many things in the book that I really love, like so many themes that were explored in the book. I really love like the language, how she made it very accessible for young readers to understand. It was just so many topics covered. I was like, wow, the world is just, I'm looking for, I haven't read the second one yet, Cazadora, but I'm looking forward to, like, now that I know about the world, like, you know, I'm ready to delve in. But I really love, what I love about it is just how the writer exposed like the patriarchy, especially in Latin America. I feel like Latin America in general, and like the families we've been brought up in, many of them, not all of them, but have like more patriarchal attitudes about a woman's place, a man's place. And I really like the topics, that like the way she explored that, and like the fantastical elements, like the magical realism. I'm always been like a big fan of magical realism books, and also it's like fantasy, like it's like but not heavy, you know. But I really like how she's, you know, how the character basically, how, you know, once Manu gets in, I don't know if I could say like any spoilers.
You definitely can. You definitely can.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
It was published. We always
2020, right?
Viewers, but
it's
published in 2020. So
yeah, so I'm like, okay. But
spoiler alert.
So yeah, so basically, like once, I mean, it's not too much of a spoiler, but then Manu, like, you know, she's a werewolf, but in that world, she's supposed to be a witch. And so, you know, once all the characters found out, there was a lot of pushback from some of those characters. They were very critical towards her, and they just didn't accept that. And so I really enjoyed that. You know, there was like a lot of discussion behind that. And, you know, just the way that just the way that was explored, like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be, but no, it doesn't always have to be like that, you know. And the whole outsider aspect of it, how she felt like an outsider, and then on top of that being like the only lobizona, the only girl werewolf, how alienating that must be for her. But I really enjoyed that a lot, because you know, I go through that, you know, especially in my experiences with my family, you know, like what I'm supposed to do, what's my role, you know, I'm supposed to have a family, you know, everything has to be a specific way, and you know, it doesn't have to be that way.
I think that theme though, that you mentioned about just being an outsider, like
Yeah.
she was feeling like an outsider, right? Like Earthside, right? Where you know she still had to like wear sunglasses because her eyes were different. You know, and the fact that her mother is undocumented, right? So feeling like an outsider in that, in you know, again, like our society. And then when she goes into this other world, she's still an outsider, right? But and I found that so neat to like connect, because like I connected a lot to like you feel an outsider, like you know, I'm Mexican American and you feel an outsider in Mexico, and then sometimes you feel like an outsider here, right? Like that like biculturalism. And I really connected with Manu in the sense of like, well, where do I fit in? Right. I'm not good enough here, but I'm not good enough here. I have to prove myself here, and then I have to hide here. So I really thought that that was really interesting how the author just tied it all together with those very important topics.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I grew up in Miami, and I would say like over time, like I mean my first language was Spanish, but then, you know, going to school and you know, my family in general kind of like were adopting more like Americanized way. And so I feel like, you know, once like I actually, you know, I left Miami, I went to college and I came back, and in a way I felt like I had to adopt like this personality that wasn't me. And I had, you know, like I was just influenced by popular culture, and like I guess feeling that homesickness for pastelitos, and like, you know, just, you know, being in my culture and, you know, dancing. Like I didn't really have any of that, so I would get judged a lot because I just didn't have those like markers of what makes me Cuban, you know, and there's no marker behind that. So definitely, like I would say there are times that being in Miami, there's like a specific stereotype of what you're supposed to be, and it's doesn't have to be that way, but I can definitely relate to that, you know.
Yeah.
So
and I empathize a lot too with Manu, because like think of that situation, right? Think of our experiences, but then you're adding in something that she can't control with the changing mood and her cycle and everything.
Yeah.
How she changes, and it's like, oh my goodness, like just how it was described. I feel like that was really intriguing too, to add to the fantasy piece of like just how she was learning to really embrace her body.
Exactly. And then we're made to feel ashamed for our bodies and for our periods, you know, because in society, that's how, I mean, periods are meant to be like a secretive, like the way they make it out to be, like popular culture is like a secretive thing, like you don't talk about it, like, you know, you go to like your friend or whatever, if you have your period, like, oh, do you have a pad? Like, it's, you know, you're like so secretive about that whole aspect. And, you know, I really like how open the author was about having your period, and how she like compared it to like that whole like werewolf, like it has that, you know, that symbolism behind it, which was like really well done. So, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then the fact that Manu, like again, for those who haven't read it yet but should, you know, like when she goes, the moon is connected to her cycle, which I feel is super, like connected to how many people think of it too, right? Like and so when she does menstruate, she will, when she gets her period, she changes into this wolf, but then she doesn't remember, right? She doesn't. And what was happening in, like, again, at home was her mother was giving her like there was something, I forget what it was called, but there was something that she was taking so that
Oh yeah, like the
it or not remember.
that I'm trying to remember what it was, but yeah, it was just to control it.
Yeah, but then she came to again where she when it came to the other world where she found other witches and other werewolves, right? They were like, yeah, that totally happens. But then a little like, why does it happen specifically for you? Like, are you a witch? Are you a wolf? Like,
Yeah, no, I definitely liked how open they were about it for sure, and with the moon cycle. So that's definitely, it was really well done. But yeah, I mean, what else? What else can I say about it?
what did you think of the who was the character that she fell in love with, like, and how or how the other brujas were treating her initially?
Oh yeah, no, that was very mean girlish. Definitely gave me those vibes for sure. Yeah, I would say like the what was it? Well, basically, I guess you could. I don't know if I should say this, but is it her cousin now? I think that's her cousin. Oh, I don't know. I think so. I'm gonna have to go back to that part, but I really think that, I guess, in that whole aspect of like, girls being competitive with one another, they were showing that aspect, how like there's this pressure to be better than one another. And so I like how she showed that with the character that gave her the most pushback, Kava. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly, but I like the way that she wrote that for sure.
Yeah, and eventually they learned to accept her, right? And they were cheering her on because again, not only was she didn't feel like she belonged, but like there was like two different groups, right? That she had to like keep her identity hidden, but at the same time try to fit in. And I feel like with the werewolves, it was very much like about stamina and athleticism and making sure you keep up with the team, right? So that they could beat them in this tournament. Whereas, like you said, with the brujas, it's like they were kind of like weary about her, but you can still see that sort of like mean girl, like they were gossiping, and so she didn't feel like
an outsider again,
really, like no home for her,
right? Exactly. Yeah, when it came to like the werewolves, which were all boys and the girls are all witches, so like she's like, okay, I don't fit in any of these groups right now. And so it's just, I feel like the message behind the book, a lot of it is just wanting to be seen and wanting to be accepted, and the whole immigration aspect, the fact that she came from an immigrant family, they were like on the run, and that whole aspect definitely hurt her, and it helped. And the thing is, in the beginning, of course, her mom was always hiding her from everybody, pretty much. She was just living in that apartment with her mom and her teacher, and it was just it was like a limiting world for her, and that's something that she really longed for, just to be seen. And she never felt good enough. She always felt like, I really like how the aspect, like she always felt like she was a burden to others, because of the fact that she had to cover her eyes, because her eyes were different from everybody else's. So I really like that theme of like wanting to be seen and wanting to be accepted, and how at the end of the day she needs to learn to accept herself and be happy with herself. And I feel like she found that.
And that she had a purpose, right? And that even when both sides found out who she was, like, again, spoiler alert, love the ending, how, you know, they really come to accept her and she is living freely, right? As I really love that transformation. Again, if you're really into sci-fi, like I highly recommend this book just because you get a lot of that fantasy component, right? Like you said, there's some themes that are just really important for our youth too, and even as adults, right? How to, you know, navigate spaces, but also living truly to who you are.
Exactly. What else I was gonna say? But I mean, as far as like the immigration aspect, I really felt that was really well done, and how there's just so much like she was like I felt like, you know, the author was kind of was like she was exposing the inhumanity that comes with immigration, and how, you know, she felt so, what's the word I'm trying to think, like she felt like not useless, what's the word what it would be, but she felt like, so no, it was not in control. She was not in control of the situation. Basically, it was out of her control. But I have a better word for that. But she felt so everything. The whole situation was basically out of her control, and I just think back to, you know, the Trump administration and how the families were separated from one another and the trauma behind it. So, I mean, the character herself, like Manu, is such a strong character with everything that she went through. It's just,
you feel helpless, right? Like you feel
like,
like,
you're helpless. That's the word, helpless. That's what
I feel out too.
I'm like out of control, like just like no. But it's just unfathomable to think about everything that this character went through. It's just so much trauma behind it, so traumatizing, because she was hid for so long, so she felt like she didn't matter at all. It's sad. It's really sad when you're reading about her journey. It's just, you know, there's so much to it, so much to what she went through. But
not all that on top of her body's changing, and she's trying to
I know
her body and trying to understand why she feels a certain way. So it's like, it's internal, externally, it's like everything. And so that just takes a lot of strength too. And for her being, you know, such a young character.
I know she's definitely a character to look up to, because she was so resilient and just trying to, you know, go through life the best way she could. And, you know, it was not easy. She was trying to figure out like her family, like she just, you know, everything in her world was so secretive, you know, trying to figure out who her father is. And I don't know what I would do. Like being in her position, it's amazing how resilient she was. So definitely, I really, like you said, like the character Manu is someone to look up to. And so, you know, there's so many like dimensions to her character. But, you know, those things.
What are your thoughts on like why this book is currently being challenged? Because it is currently being challenged.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's currently being challenged.
I mean, I was trying to look up as to why it was being challenged, but I can guess so many things as to why, because like I said, there's so many topics in the book overall, you know, that are challenged with other books. So I just kind of equate to like the whole LGBTQ aspect of it. There is some of that in the book. I mean, they do talk about the gender, was it not non-binary? They talk about the gender binary, how they need to, you know, end that. So I would say aspects related to the LGBTQIA umbrella, for sure. I think that's number one, because they're trying to ban all books with even like a snippet of that. And then of course immigration, because I would say immigration and the way that has been dealt with in this country through the years, especially now, there's so much inhumanity about it. And there's, it's just so black and white now. It's sad the way that, that it has been since, I would say, there's always been issues with immigration, but it's been a lot worse overall, especially since the Trump administration. So I would say like that, that has been challenged. Maybe even like when it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good.
Oh no, there's just so many things. I would say maybe when it comes to what we were talking about with girls being open about their period and open about their struggles, and they might find that explicit, which it isn't. It's just reality. What
you
else?
think about like even what you mentioned about, we're living in even the setting of the book, it's in a patriarchal society, right? And just the fact that women can't talk about their period, it's very about their menstrual cycles, or how it's, they're connected to moon cycles, like, because I still, even to this day, women's bodies are so controlled and still trying to we're still passing laws on where women can't control their bodies and have a say over their bodies. And so anything related to periods, menstruation, et cetera, I feel like it's well, no, like Manu didn't have any control of that, but she was accepting of her body and going through those changes and figuring out why that was happening, right? And
exactly
talking about those topics, like you said, it was very explicit that she was going through these changes because of her period. Even that topic itself, I can see why it's challenged, because I know that other books in our history, when it comes to women's body, when it comes to how our bodies function, is always like, oh no, we can't talk about that. We just don't talk about that. And it's like,
yeah. And if they do talk about it, like, it's very glazed over. It's not as explicit. I mean, when I'm thinking about, I've actually never read this book myself, but I've heard so much about it. Maybe you've read it. Was it Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret? That one talks about periods, and I heard that one was like one of the first books that was open about it. I'm not exactly sure how open it was, but the fact that people are still talking about it, it shows like not a lot of books really expose that and talk about, how difficult it is. I mean, for me, I got my period at a very young age. I got mine like at 10 years old. And that was very traumatic for me because I didn't know what the heck was going on. So, yeah. And, and actually I remember not really being like spoken to about like, okay, why is this happening? Like, and that's the thing. There's just so much like, it's so secretive, and it's so like not like secretive, but like you say, like taboo behind it. So I would say that parents probably have an issue with that because they're like, oh, I want to talk to my child about that. I don't want a book talking about that. They're not going to do it the right way and all that crap. That's just not true,
Yeah, but I think that's definitely one of the reasons, for sure. Just again, bodies, like how we're not, how we view women's bodies, who that body, and just again under a patriarchal society. I think too, like the fact that ICE and they're talking about immigrants and immigration is another reason why it's challenged. And and just also too, just with the non-binary identities, like having non-binary identities and it being stated that they have non-binary identities, and talking about their gender identities, I think is also a common thread among this book.
Yeah, because that's so, it's still a very debated topic, and there's still so much pushback from so many people about it. I mean, I encounter so many people that still don't understand, and they just don't want to understand. And so I'm sure like parents are, like I was saying, like, having their kids read about it. For some reason, they're thinking, oh, my kid is going to end up being non-binary, which is ridiculous. And, you know, I know that, for example, for some other books that have been challenged, they say, okay, well, this book is sexually explicit, or like if it's related to any queer kind of themes, they feel like it's going to teach their kids about like queer sex. And I mean, that's not like what the whole, you know, book is trying to communicate at all. I know, for example, the other book, was it All Boys Are in Blue? That one is a memoir, and that's his, you know, that's their experience. That's their experience. So, you know, it's not trying to teach about, you know, trying to make your kid queer or anything. It's just, they are just talking about their experience and how and what they went through. It's just an honest portrayal, you know, at the end of the day.
And I think that's just really important, because if our readers aren't reading this, like if they're not, if they're being taken, it's like books like Lobizona, right? Like specific here, like if they're being taken out of our curriculums, or, you know, just educational syllabuses, or not on shelves, I feel like our readers are going to lose out on reading about reading amazing authors, right? Just period. But then also reading about these characters that are so well developed, where again, we're talking about many different themes throughout the book. And I feel like when you take out a lot of those books, either with queer characters or queer authors, when you take away books that talk about topics like immigration and, you know, menstruation, I feel like it's not going to take away, it's not going to erase any community, right? It's not going to erase it from everybody's memory. Society that others want to live in, you know, like people exist, right? These topics exist, menstruation exists, right? I feel like our readers just, from this book, I feel like they gain Manu, and like you said, the transformation she made, and how much her strength and not only resilience within, you know, again, a society that was not accepting of her, both
right.
I feel like our readers definitely would lose out if they didn't read this book.
Right, exactly. I mean, like you said, all these things are still existing, no matter whether you want to ban them or not. They're still going to be there. But yeah, the kids that are not as privileged are losing out on learning about these topics and just being educated about it. It's just not, it's not right to, you know, put your child in a bubble, because once they get exposed to that, they're going to have so many questions, and or they're not going to be able to see both sides of the coin. It doesn't mean that, because I know that there's a lot of talk about that their kids are going to be indoctrinated and that they're going to believe it automatically, instead of just seeing different points of view and seeing different kinds of situations happen and different people. And, you know, because, you know, a kid living in Oklahoma versus a kid living in Miami, it's like two different points of view, you know, two different worlds. And it's good to be exposed to, you know, to the world and learn about it. And there doesn't mean that they're going to become that, you know. And it's sad because you see a lot of kids, you know, there are kids that are, if they want to read the book, more privileged, that they're going to be able to have access to it. I remember I was just watching Ashley from Bookish Realm. It's a booktuber. I love what, do you know who she is? She was just saying that. She was saying like what she's like, you know, when it comes to authors stating, hey, oh, it's a badge of honor to have my book challenged or banned. But it's not really a badge of honor, because those kids that don't have their tablets, don't have their cell phones, they don't have money to buy $20 books. Like, they're the ones that are losing out, you know, and they don't have access to those books, and that's really sad, you know. But that's what's like really gets to you, because you want kids to be able to see themselves in those books, you know. And
I haven't thought about that. I'm so glad you brought it up. Just just the privilege of challenging books, right? And how it affects certain communities, how it affects more communities versus other communities. Like you said, like if a book currently is being challenged, like, you know, we might have the privilege to just still go to the bookstore and get it, right? Oh, it's not in our shelves. Well, we're gonna go to Barnes and Noble. We're gonna go to our local, bookstore anyways. And not everybody has that privilege. Like,
no.
And some of our students, like I know some of my students, are accessing most of their books through our schools, and so might not have that opportunity.
Yeah, they're not gonna. I mean, like I said, like some kids are just gonna be able to get it no matter what. Like I know when my parents would try to like keep me from watching something, I would figure out a way to watch it, or to figure out a way to read it. I remember I wasn't allowed to watch at the time Meryl's Place, and I would figure out how to watch it, or My So-Called Life. That was a big one. But I would watch it like late at night when my parents were asleep. Like I would figure it out, like everyone, and it comes to technology, like kids are so savvy, they're going to figure out how to get that book, whether your parents are not wanting you to read it or not. They're going to figure it out. But when it comes to kids that are not in that situation, it's sad because they miss out, especially when they don't see themselves in the books in the school libraries, when the books are whitewashed. It's going to be hard for them too, and they're going to feel, I mean, if they're readers, they want to be able to see themselves, and it can be a very lonely experience. And I know what it feels like to finally see yourself in a book. It's a great feeling. I don't feel like I saw myself in a book until I picked up the book Dreaming in Cuban. Like I was like 22. It was the first time I actually really saw myself in a book. And it's we need that access. And now there's like so many books with so many topics and so much diversity, especially in the Latin community, so many authors and themes and topics. And it's amazing to see that. And now it's being shut down, and it's really sad to see that.
I know. It is. We need that representation. We need everybody to read Lobizona. Share it everywhere with the community.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex, for joining, and for just talking about this amazing book. Again, the book is Lobizona by Romina Garber. It is in a series, so this is Wolves of No World. This is book 1, and then the second book is Cazadora, which I think is also already released. So check it out, and catch us next time as well. So thanks again, Alex. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.